Workers with disabilities. What's the craziest thing an employer or coworker has said to you about your disability? I was told by my manager that I can no longer use my traumatic brain injury as an excuse, primarily for forgetting things, and that I need to get over it. Story 2. Quit ignoring me. Apparently she was talking to me from across a busy restaurant and I decided to ignore her. Couldn't be that pesky hearing issue I mentioned in my interview. Story 3. I, in my mid-30s at the time, needed an exploratory scope under sedation to monitor an autoimmune disease, plus MRI, which ultimately picked up the presence of a tumor that I needed out immediately. Being that I worked for the medical claims department of a self-insured entity, my department handled our internal claim. Somehow, my colleague got a hold of my medical records and gossiped with a second party about my condition. This all happened because they were annoyed by how much time I was taking off of work and didn't believe I needed to. To anyone wondering, HR caught wind and suspended one of my colleagues without pay for a week instead of firing her. I didn't have any legal fight in me, considering how sick I was at the time. I did get mild comeuppance. We often took our lunches at our desks and played around on the internet, got personal phone calls taken care of during our break time, so I kept my ear open for such an occasion where they were repeating their personal info to whatever business they were calling. Armed with their personal phone numbers and addresses, you'd best believe I signed them up for every predatory service I could think of. Political campaigns? Hell yeah, they want to donate. For-profit college admissions department? Sign the duck up. Extended car warranty? Yes, sir. We're totally interested. Blood donation? We have the rarest blood type and an endless supply. It's a bleeding bonanza. Duck with me and I'll mildly inconvenience you. Story 4. I have another, actually. I had a manager last year that told me that my diabetes was a hindrance to the team because of the one time that I had to step into the back for 2 minutes to drink an apple juice to treat a low blood sugar. That manager also claimed I clearly didn't take care of myself because my insulin pump occasionally beeped at work. Story 5. FedEx office legit wouldn't let me have my cane on the floor, as there's a lawsuit ongoing and it's a tripping hazard, to which I went. Yeah, it really is. I trip and fall after some time if I don't have it. But because Kaiser's general doctor treated the workplace accommodation form like it was a live rattlesnake, I had to just put up with not having a cane until, checks notes. I had a workplace accident which workman's comp denied because of pre-existing condition, and then FedEx office sidelined me out of production and into no man's land, kept reducing my hours until I needed to find another job. You know, just corporate things. And all that's a shame because I really loved what I did, and if I could get another print production, graphic design job like that, I'd do it in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. Also, if anyone needs some print production advice, don't hesitate to ask. The least I can do is help people out. Story 6. Context. I'm legally blind, and as much as I tried to scan and remember where things are put, I'm also human. It was Christmas rush in a now bankrupt bookstore chain. I shed no tears over them. And I tripped over a display. In doing so, I broke my ankle. My manager's reaction, how could you not see that? Not, are you okay, or do you want me to call 911? When I busted my ass off and was doing 110% just, nope. That was the day I stopped caring, and probably the day the GM decided to put me on an unofficial on-call with weekend hours while I was full-time. This was with the okay of people higher than the GM. Like I said, I'm not sad they're bankrupt and I hope they stay gone. Support indie bookstores. Story 7. I often use a wheelchair because my hips and knees love to just randomly dislocate. And I have spinal stenosis. An old manager saw me outside of work walking with a cane out of a doctor's appointment. And I was only walking because my wheelchair had broken at a family outing and I was waiting on my insurance to approve my new one. New one came in before my next scheduled day, and said manager called me into her office. She mentioned seeing me walk and asked what was up with the wheelchair. I explained that while I technically can walk, it's extremely unsafe for me to do so. She heard can walk and said, since my wheelchair is an unnecessary accommodation, I'm just taking advantage of the system and I needed to start leaving it at home. I was so baffled that I wrote up my resignation letter that day and reported her to all the necessary channels. If nothing else, managers seem to always have the audacity. Story 8. When I worked my last job, I was promised frequent breaks as I have a neuromuscular disorder. I tell upper management that they never did allow for that, and quite the opposite. 10-hour days alone, running a kitchen single-handedly for a year with no guarantee for any break at all, unless I did so after close on my own accord. And as such, would be asking for things to change. They changed my scheduling on me without me agreeing to it, claiming that my role in this kitchen required me to be there for days that I was not available for at the time, Friday, Saturday, to cover. 2. I then requested for my managers to provide me with the considerable raise I had requested, and they had agreed to months prior, and was met with a, "We are a union. We think of the collective as a whole rather than the individual." We will not be able to give you the raise you are asking for. It was at that point where I collectively packed up my crap and started to put this individual before the job I was doing for the first time in almost 2 years. They tried gaslighting me in an attempt to get me to stay by saying that the team that was there at the time relied on me and it would be irresponsible to leave them, and that it was the start to a great team. It was a skeleton crew that I was one of 2 at our worst. I told them time and time again that we needed more people to get anything to work properly, and was always met with the "people don't want to work anymore" speech. Perhaps it's because that they'd be making $16 per hour and would need to go through background checks and a month or so onboarding process that made it not worth it in the slightest. When I took 20 minutes to find a job in a better city, better hours, better people, better pay, it was a no-brainer. Even with a disability, I was accepted within a week and promoted in position within 2 weeks, and will be receiving my first raise shortly. And I was hired at $18 per hour as the lowest when I left my last job at $17 after several promotions. It was never my direct bosses that were the problem. They were actually quite nice and supportive. It was their bosses that approved things, or didn't, and were non-communicative until something went wrong and they needed answers. It was so bad that the better half of our other kitchens wanted me to collectively walk out with them, foot a $3,000 stake to buy a restaurant of our own as a final middle finger to these employers. This included sous chef, bartenders, servers, line staff, dishwasher, and our executive chef that wasn't able to do his job to the fullest because his bosses shut him down and turned him into a glorified catering cook. I'd considered getting back in contact with some of them to get them to defect to where I work now, but it would be 1 HRLS a drive for them if they didn't relocate, and making it a little more difficult. The directors where I worked never admitted to ever having done anything wrong either, which makes this all funny. I need you to enforce breaks. I was promised them, and I don't even get to have one most days. You're supposed to take your breaks, and we can't do anything about that or enforce it. I am overworked for my conditions and would like things changed. We see no way here that you have been mistreated. Meanwhile, I laugh and refer back to my ADP app that shows my time card with 18 red flags per week, including early in, late out, long interval, no break, with 53-hour weeks most weeks. But no, I've clearly never been mistreated. I have no logical reason to want to leave this company at all. Story 9. When I worked as a phone monkey in a government job, they enforced a 9-month probation period and mandatory 10 hours of overtime in a 5-day work week. Great. During this probation, you were not allowed any absences for any reason. Each unexcused, every absence was a write-up, and if you got 3 strikes, you were out. My first day off was my literal high school graduation. I had graduated early at 17 to start working because I planned to move continents once I had saved enough. However, if I missed the graduation ceremony for my official academic year, I would not receive my diploma. I needed a diploma to even get the job, but they made an exception because I had already finished school and was scheduled to get it shortly after starting. To be frank, they needed as many employees as they could get, considering their turnover rate was nearly 95. Despite informing them of this date before even taking the job and requesting the time off weeks in advance, this was my first strike. The next absence was because while already mourning my deceased dog, my aunt passed away suddenly in the same week. Neither death counted as acceptable bereavement time off, so this became my second strike. The following day, my supervisor asked me to come to her cubicle, which was attached to the rest of my team so everyone could hear. She informed me that she was sorry for my loss, but one more unexcused absence would result in termination. I cried through every phone call that day. I couldn't afford to lose this job, so when I started feeling sick and breathless, I pushed through it. When I got much worse, I still showed up and made sure my work didn't suffer because I couldn't lose this job. Even if I had time to go to the doctor with 10 hours mandatory overtime on top of a 45-hour work week, my health insurance deductible was $6,000. Duck you, Aetna, by the way. Eventually, I didn't really have enough saved to cover emergencies, but I could afford the one-way ticket and moving expenses, and I literally couldn't breathe anymore. I couldn't take the phone calls because speaking at all took all my air and made my lungs feel like they had caught fire. My entire body was in unbearable pain. I had to quit. I had pushed myself through getting sicker and sicker for nearly 2 months. Turns out, it wasn't just bronchitis or pneumonia. I was dying. After working at this useless, dead-end, soul-sucking crap hole of a job for almost a year, I spent months recovering from such a massive pulmonary embolism and DVT that my surgeon said he had never seen such extensive clotting in the history of his career. Another 24 hours, he said, and I would be dead. I was 18 years old. I am still disabled to this day, and all because 3 strikes and you're out. Story 10. I got hurt at work really bad. They told me I could stop working because of it. Well, I didn't want to do that. I got to at least try. Took a year off from work to heal and therapy and blah blah. Ready to work again. Got a job at a gas station so I could ease back into it. Walk with a severe limp and can't stand for long periods of time. Employer knew this before hiring me. First 5 to 6 months were okay. People were nice and respectful, but you could tell the other employees kind of held it against me that I had to do less than them. Boss likes me, duck everyone else. Eventually, I would hear my coworkers complain to my boss about how I'm just being lazy and it's not fair. I don't have to do X and Y, and they do. Lazy became a prominent word in my workplace. Coworkers would say stuff about other people that was obviously about me. One time, this 19-year-old dude moved the chair I had into the back office. So when I got there for my shift and was alone, I would have to walk back and grab it and carry it out every time he worked. He started doing this, claiming the boss told him to clean, so he was just putting stuff away. Hate being a tattletale. But after a few months of it, I finally went to my boss. Hey, so-and-so is going out of his way to make my life harder. Could you just ask him to please leave the chair out? Mind you, I only sat down for 5 to 10 minutes at a time so I could get a break from the pain. I wasn't just sitting my whole shift. Boss says she'll handle it. She doesn't. So I applied for disability, got approved, and quit on truck day while we were already short-staffed. Now I just take care of the house and keep my pets happy. Story 11. I have bipolar disorder. I usually keep my disability status to myself, but I had a really bad manic episode, and unfortunately I had no choice but to tell the truth about why I was in the hospital for a few days and why I had been very odd at work. He told me mental disabilities weren't real and I needed to pray harder. I just got up and walked out after that. I didn't even respond because I knew nothing kind would come out of my mouth. For the record, I have never walked out of a job before, and I always gave my 2 weeks before that. Story 12. For me, it's managers thinking just because I'm young, I shouldn't be having any disabilities, let alone the many I do have. It's none of their business if it doesn't affect my work. And when it has affected my work, I gave documentation to which they said would be shared to the other managers. It was not. I was laughed at when I told the EMOD that I needed to take a break to eat because I had already been there 9 hours without a break at all. They gave me one but have retaliated since. Story 13. I have worked at a major unionized shipping company for the past 19 years. For a majority of that time, I had Crohn's, UC, and had to run to the bathroom multiple times shift. I work inside. The number of times I got yelled at, attempted to write me up, disciplined me because I needed to literally run to the bathroom is outstanding. Oh, but it gets better. I switched shifts about 5 years ago and ended up in a different area of my building, one which suited me pretty well. No need to grab cover if I had to go. Just make it fast and I'm good. Well, 3 years ago this month, I was DX with stage 4 colon cancer. Went through treatment and surgery, which ultimately, while curing my Crohn's, left me with an ileostomy and bag for the rest of my life. I'm still able to do the same job that I've been doing for the past 5 years. So now onto the good one. There is one section of my area has a literal line of metal hooks at the same height as my bag. I'm not talking 1 or 2 hooks. No, it is 100 feet of hooks, with them being spaced at 2 every 3. My anxiety goes through the roof, and I'm just worried about getting everyone's stuff covered with literal crepe. There are 5 other places in my area that I can work, just not this one. Well, back in March, my building manager decided that I can't do the same job that I've been doing for the last 5 years, 2 at the time with an ileostomy, and that the only spot in the entire building I could do was the area with the hooks. And since I refused to do it because of my anxiety of the bag getting caught, I had to go out on disability. Well, the wonders of being in a union came into play. Halfway through the conversation, I stopped my BM and said, I think this is a conversation for you and the union lawyers, and not I. The union lawyers had a field day with it, and by Monday, I was back to normal. Then 2 weeks ago, I had a new supervisor that tried to pull the same thing. She literally said, I can do it, it's not hard. Why can't you? So yeah, had to get my steward in on that one, but it's been resolved. Happy times being disabled, I guess. Story 14. Hi, fellow T1 diabody. I also have T1D. On MDI, though, so far. Inject your insulin in the bathroom. People crap in the bathroom. It's literally the most disgusting place. No. I ended up leaving the premises, walking out to the road, and injecting there, because they wouldn't give me a place inside the building to inject. Don't inject your insulin while you are at work or we'll take it away from you. No, if my blood sugar is high, I'm going to correct, and you are not stopping me from doing that. Also, it's a controlled substance in my country. If you take it away, you are officially committing crime. Theft, possession of a controlled substance, etc. And I told them that if they did that, I would walk straight to management and inform them. Then I'd call adult safeguarding from the perspective of putting the residents at risk. And finally, I'd call the police and tell them too. And I'd walk out and leave them short-staffed because I refuse to work with thieves. Can't you turn the alarm off? You can see we're training. It's really inconsiderate of you to leave it on. Yes, Carla, I know my Libre is loud, but I have it set to the lowest possible level I can go without going hypo and having a medical emergency, which I guarantee will be more disruptive than an alarm that's silenced within 5 seconds. The high blood sugar alarm is set at 12 milli, 216 mg, because that's when sugar starts spilling into urine and making it harder for my kidneys, which causes damage to my kidneys and needs fixing. The alarms are there for a reason. They aren't there for craps and giggles, girl. Grow up. Story 15. I've had chronic daily migraine for a long time. My last administrator suffered from chronic, but not daily migraines and would try to knock me down a peg anytime I mentioned I wasn't feeling well, saying he and some others suffer from migraines too, and they're dealing with it. My previous manager once mentioned this book written by a Navy SEAL or Marine who had gone through training with 2 broken legs, and maybe I should read it, since I was letting those darn migraines get the best of me. Story 16. Old employer gave me little to no training and support from day one. I was manning the phones and had to often deal with poor connections and speech from those calling us. Got in trouble because I couldn't understand someone who called one day drunk and slurred speech and was pulled out in the middle of another call to be lectured on something completely unrelated to my job. I mentioned in my interview that I may have difficulty hearing phone calls if the line is poor, and that's exactly what happened. At one point, I had found a system that worked for me, as the way the manager did it just wasn't the way I could work. I got in trouble for not writing things with a dash. Instead, I listed them taking a word per line. My notebook was taken off me, and I had nothing to write on, which resulted in me repeatedly asking for it back, but no avail. The manager was keeping it to show me a lesson. I had no access to a certain phone number that I had to provide, and my manager stopped me from providing this. After the call ended, I was told that I simply didn't bother checking my notes, and I clearly proved that these notes did not contain the phone number or the information I needed. I mentioned numerous times in the interview that as a neurodivergent person, I need a system that will work for me and allow me to thrive within the workplace and do my job. Once took a really bad period, which have caused me so many issues in the past, and I've missed school because of period sickness, and I was on the toilet for longer than 5 minutes just trying to deal with it. I was given a lecture about wasting time and threatened to have pay deducted from me because I wasn't working. I made it known from day one that my periods can come as a surprise and be harsh despite having an implant. I was there 14 days before they fired me. Their loss because they had to pay me for my work plus the 4 weeks I'd have to give for notice. That extra paid for a hell of a lot of Christmas expenses. Story 17. I can't believe she takes all that medication. Surely that's not right? If I didn't take all that medication, I wouldn't be able to work. I can't believe she got that promotion. She doesn't deserve it with all the breaks she takes. I don't take any more breaks than my coworkers. Said coworker also tried to get me sacked several times for no reason and has harassed another coworker. Nothing ever happened because I'm ducking good at my job, and he's a massive idiot that no one likes. We've taken him to HR several times, but nothing ever happens. He's an absolute... I don't know how he still has a job, honestly. I work in healthcare. If anything, my disabilities help me relate to patients more. Oh, and my building isn't wheelchair accessible. There's no dropped Kirby on one side, so I have to drive on the road, with the cars to come in when I was reliant on my wheelchair and having to come into the office. It still hasn't been remedied after me being there for 2 years. They also decided to move the office upstairs, away from the disabled toilet. The lift has already broken at least once. Luckily, my new promotion is who only, but my last position wasn't. Absolute nightmare. It took them 8 months to figure out an evacuation plan for me, and they didn't even stick to it. That a manager should be in the office when I'm at all times in case of emergency to operate the evacuation chair. Ridiculous. Also had to use annual leave to attend a health thing for 2 weeks because work refused to allow me the time off under medical leave because I wasn't having an operation. It was pain rehabilitation, think a mix of physio and psychological help for chronic pain. The amount of paperwork I had to submit was unreal, and they only approved it because, and I quote, "It may reduce the number of absences she has." I got 2 weeks special leave, like the kind you get for jury service, grieving, etc., and then had to use the rest as annual leave. They also ignore most of my accommodations from occupational health. Story 18. Before I accepted a job with my last employer, I explained that I didn't have interest in working night shift as I had been robbed on night shift at a previous employer in the same industry. I have CPTSD from this and other incidents that happened around the same time in a cluster of really messed up events. Cut to 2 years later, I have been promoted within the company, and to my surprise, I'm now expected to run the night shift. I did not agree to this, and it was a total surprise. I sent an email to my boss as soon as I caught wind of the plans for this change in my schedule, stating I was uncomfortable working that shift, as I had previously told them. I had few terrible meetings with my boss and his boss, 2 middle-aged white men. Not surprisingly, they had no idea what it might feel like to be a woman in charge of a skeleton crew after hours working outside. Even without PTSD, Other women in the company had expressed some concerns working late inside the building. The bosses were quite activating for me, as I was told things like, I was naive to believe I would never have to work at night. They can't change how they do things just for me, and asking if I ever leave my house after dark. My one boss yelled at me and then blamed his reaction on me for crying. He slammed a door against the wall, and he openly mocked me, saying maybe I should call my lawyer. This all from trying to discuss some extra safety measures for the shift. I really would have given it a try if they were able to meet me somewhere in the middle and bolster the safety of the shift, but now I'm glad I didn't. As one friend stated, nobody should have to feel unsafe for someone else's bottom line. I ended up being terminated for refusing to do my job. I have a lawyer, and I am proud to be standing up to these bullies. And if I get some money out of the situation, yay. Story 19. My shared office was so small that one of the desks only fit in there so that my back was to the open door. I'm pretty sure it used to be a closet. I requested that my office mate and I move offices because I am deaf and cannot hear people approaching from behind. My office mate didn't want to sit at that desk either because someone had taken pictures of her butt while she was standing at that desk with her back to the door. We could have easily swapped with another person who had their own office alone. My manager denied my request because coworker X wouldn't like that. X wouldn't be affected by us changing offices. I wasn't asking to swap with him. He just didn't want me to change offices because he did not like me. He didn't like me because on my first day he said hello in passing and I did not reply because I did not hear him because I'm deaf. I worked in the ADA department. Story 20. Wanted to demote me because he was afraid I would lose money from the safe. I had been doing the job for over a year before my smart ass thought I should tell them because I had been formally diagnosed with dyscalculia. I had never been short on my till. In fact, the only time there was money issues was when my managers used my till after they had dropped theirs. We had a couple of times 100 was missing. It was because the assistant manager borrowed it. To finance his divorce, the money showed up on his last day. Story 21. I worked in a federal field office as a federal employee. I started sneezing, then began getting severe migraines around lunchtime through the rest of the afternoon. It got so bad that I'd go home after work and have to close the blinds and sit with a cloth over my eyes for 4 hours in complete darkness. My head just pounded the entire time. No amount of medication would touch it. It took me a year to figure out. I began noticing that on the days a certain coworker was gone, I wouldn't have migraine. She had one of those small essential oil diffusers on the file cabinet above her desk. We did a test one day and she put it out of sight and turned it on and off randomly to see if I started to sneeze. Every time she turned it on, I sneezed within 2 minutes, but then she refused to turn it off. Then, another employee from our adjoining office began using Glade plugins. I was positioned right by the door to that office and within 20 feet of the plugin. Within 2 hours of walking into the office, I'd get severe migraines. Light, sound, and movement made my head pound ferociously. I asked her very kindly to remove them, and she refused. I went to my supervisor to report all of this, and his response was, well, people have the right to make their workplace feel like home. I finally had to spend my money and take out my PTO to visit an allergy specialist to get a doctor's note saying that yes, sense sensitivities are very real and that I needed ADA accommodation, i.e., don't burn that crap in the office anymore. They finally had to stop, but they'd use strong cleaners on the lunch table by my desk as often as they could as retribution. I finally just got the duck out of there. They're just nasty people. Story 22. 26 with major hip issues, mentioned it to my manager at a previous job in a warehouse. I was a manager myself, so this was a regional manager type of guy who never did the work himself. I asked to get a chair in my office as a reasonable accommodation. This seems reasonable and would not put the business in jeopardy to accommodate, and it helps me with my disability. I still have to walk occasionally, but I did a lot of desk work too. The dude went on a tirade about how they don't let any managers have chairs and it wouldn't be fair. That's what an accommodation is, hello. I'm too young to need to sit during the day. About 30% of those with osteoarthritis are under 40, so no, I'm not too young for hip issues. Also, he is not a doctor. And just wait until you're my age. You think you have it bad now? You don't even know how good you have it now. Yes, by your age, my disability will have gotten even worse, and my treatment options will be less and less effective. Thanks for the reminder. I don't know what he expected me to say, but I think I responded with something along the lines of, I'm literally disabled. My doctor says I should sit at least 4 hours during the day. The job is 6 hours of desk work a day. This isn't a big ask. And yes, by the time I'm your age, I will be unable to work like this. I don't see how it's relevant. The guy was so clueless and insensitive, but I ended up getting my chair in the end as soon as he realized I knew what the term reasonable accommodation meant and that I know it is an undue hardship to buy a cheap desk chair or move an unused one from another office. I've since left story 23. When I lost my hearing on my right side, my manager told me, it didn't matter because I still had another one. After 6 months of trying to do my job in a call center, I asked for a transfer to admin. Another manager wrote on my request form that there was nothing wrong with me and she was sick of me playing the sympathy card. Angry letter from my audiologist later. I got my transfer. Story 24. I suffer from chronic migraines. One of my bosses is 100% convinced it's just headaches. You know, the kind of headaches that turns my one eye completely bloodshot, constantly running to the gents to throw up, slurring speech, lack of awareness, and numerous other crafty experiences, particularly as I have varying levels. Some days it's generally feeling rough with some light aversion, but manageable to other days where I can't think or see well enough to even put my shoes on the right feet, let alone the constant dizziness, nausea, nosebleeds, vomiting, diarrhea, mental fog, drooling, and so on. The only time I call out sick is if I physically cannot do anything, which is thankfully rare, like maybe once in a 6-month period, and I'm out for a few days at worst. Once even pulled me into a meeting accusing me of being hungover, despite the well-known fact I don't drink and had been fine the previous 2 hours beforehand, because I was slurry, unfocused, light adverse, and just generally zombie-like. Despite warning him an hour prior, I was getting migraine auras and already feeling pretty beat up. No amount of documentation, discussion, or even seeing my decline in real time will convince him other than I get headaches. Frustratingly, my doctors also have this opinion, as anytime I finally manage to see them, it's either past or it's a day where it's manageable. All I've been prescribed is sleeping pills or antidepressants, with the only thing actually working, if you ignore the side effects of violent mood swings, general lethargy, and other not-so-fun things, was some painkillers for a completely different issue. But due to said side effects, just made my life hell in new and interesting ways. Story 25. Autism, ADHD. When asking for accommodations, the person in HR asked, "Oh, so how long do you expect to need these accommodations? Is this something you expect will be resolved in the near future?" Mind you, this was 21, so a time where it was very well known there's no cure to ASD or ADHD. I was so shocked I just said, "No, it's terminal," and only realized my verbal typo after the phone call was over. Story 26. A few years ago, I had major surgery. Was scheduled to come back to work 2 weeks later on half-day duty. No heavy lifting, stairs, or strenuous work per doctor's orders. I was called in after a week off as the big boss was out and they needed me to finish up paperwork for the company ASAP. I was fine with this because it was desk work and that's about all I could do anyway, with how much pain I was in at the time. The rank was boss, me, secretary, and boss's minion. At some point, her minion decided that thought I was fine and needed to do my job. She told me to move boxes of books. I explained I couldn't lift over 5-10 pounds because of surgery, and she rolled her eyes. She told me not to be lazy and literally shoved a box of books into my arms. I screamed and dropped to the ground. My coworkers came out and freaked out on her. One small ambulance ride, a few fresh stitches, and a visit from my very anxious boss later. I had another 2 weeks off, and the minion got an unpaid suspension and sensitivity training. Nowadays, she doesn't even look in my direction or ask me to do anything outside my job description. Story 27. Boss. You're going to the bathroom too much, me. Take it up with the Taliban. I had a sniper round. I was lucky. No colostomy bag. But I do have to use the bathroom far more frequently than the average person. This little conversation happened in front of all my coworkers in a Ford shop. Everyone laughed at my boss. He got really embarrassed and never brought it up again. The place was a crap hole at best. Story 28. No one said anything terrible to my face, but I've had people talk crap behind my back. I received permission from my supervisor to work a flexible schedule due to a chronic illness. As long as I was getting my hours in, he didn't really care when I came into the office. I just had to let him know each morning what my schedule was going to be that day. Well, the other person on our team threw a fit and complained about how I was always coming in late to anyone who would listen. She careened so much HR got involved and made my supervisor reverse his decision, while also giving me a written warning for doing exactly what my supervisor said I could do. The irony here is that she also didn't have a set schedule. She just came and went as she pleased. She would leave for hours in the middle of the workday. Some days she wouldn't come back. Others she wouldn't come in at all. I would estimate that she was only actually working half the hours she was scheduled for. I don't know what her story was, and obviously I'm sympathetic if there were medical reasons. But her hypocrisy, backstabbing, and overall toxicity has zero excuse. She was a heinous Karen, and I was so happy when she retired. Story 29. As a type 1 myself, I get all kinds of "I have diabetes too, just take better care of yourself." Sadly, I'm the only type 1 in my department, but we have a few heavier guys who develop type 2. No disrespect at all at them not knowing the differences, but I have a huge issue with people telling me how wrong I handle my crap. Hey man, can you mute that? It's my Dexcom. I need to know when something is wrong. I don't think you should think that drink, dude. When I was drinking a vanilla doubles hot drink from a vending machine because I needed to fix a very bad oncoming low. Arrow point straight down at 55 bad. When explaining I needed it, they scoff and say I should keep better track of how I'm feeling. I just try my best to laugh or shrug, but every now and then I'll show some when I'm in the middle of saving my own life and someone else says it's because I refuse to take accountability. But the craziest? The absolute craziest? Ahem. Hey boss, I can't get to that right now. I'm having an episode. 15 minutes tops. Dramatic sigh. Insulin's age. I need you there right now. See if you can figure it out while you wait. Dude is awesome, don't get me wrong. But that hesitation there with the trailing wait, I was dumbfounded that he said that over dispatch. Story 30. Most of mine are not as viscerally awful as some of what has been listed here, but I'm bipolar, have autism spectrum disorder, and have a non-epileptic seizure disorder that requires medication. What all of this means is that I don't seem emotive. I have the same spectrum as everyone else, but it's harder for me to fake enthusiasm, e.g. make goofy facial expressions, but the right ones, than it is for most people. You can see how this would be a hindrance in the white-collar world where mirroring your manager's emotions so he thinks you care the petty crap he does, but not succumbing to them, lest you make his anxiety worse, is essential to survival. Because your real job in the corporate world is not to be a programmer or analyst or writer or whatnot. Anyway, I've gotten so much crap about facial expressions and engagement, and most of it isn't as openly awful as what's said here, but it's irritating as hell, and often quite disgusting, the things these mother duckers think they have the right to say. It's not that I'm not doing the work, I am, but that I'm apparently bad at pretending it's my favorite thing to do, which is true, but we don't need to ducking talk about it. It's not hurting anyone, and there's nothing I can do about it. Story 31. I don't have a gallbladder due to gallstones. I still get sick very easily. Even if I eat what I consider safe food, I'm still at risk to getting sick from it. Most employers I've had understand this, and as long as I get my assignments that are due for the day done, they don't care if I take extra time to recover from a flare-up. Anyway, my most recent job, I had a boss who constantly would text me whenever I went to the bathroom. If I would work from home, she would screenshot my away status on Teams and post it in the group chat asking if I was okay. I even sat her down and told her that I get sick easily because I'm missing an organ. The final straw was I had to WFH instead of being in office due to having stomach issues, and she made me tell my entire team about my condition during a Teams meeting. I was so embarrassed. I ended up quitting without a 2-week notice and reported her to HR due to other issues, but that part got me the most. BTW, this wasn't the US either. This was New Zealand, which makes it even more illegal what she was doing. Story 32. I am colorblind. It affects light green, red, dark green, brown, dark blue, purple, and light blue, pink. My manager asked why I was opening contracts every time I had to check a client contract status. He didn't believe me when I said I was colorblind and couldn't read the color code, so I had to look inside for the actual worded status. He tried to fire me for lying about a disability, failed to do so. Then, since constantly crap test me about random objects' color to try to make me prove I lied so that he can use that to fire me. Because having to use an extra 3 seconds over 20-30 minutes calls is bad performance for him. Story 33. I have non-photosensitive epilepsy, and one of my triggers for a grand mal seizure is not enough sleep. Cue them scheduling me for 2 shifts back-to-back so that I would only get 3 hours of sleep, even if I immediately dropped to sleep the second I got home. Long commute and they knew it. I tried to argue me case, but they wouldn't budge. So I went in kind of hoping that I'd have a seizure and prove them wrong in front of customers. By some miracle, I didn't have a seizure, but they took that as proof that I was over-exaggerating and or lying about it. On top of that, I have autism, and most workplaces are just gigantic popularity contests. The number of times that people have quietly avoided me while expecting me to figure out why is staggering. And then, because I'm not popular enough, my hours get cut with no legitimate explanation. Story 34. Tried to write me up for calling out with the given excuse, I'm having a major pain episode. My meds are late from the VA. I will not only be useless at work, but the chance of me crashing from the dizziness is too great. Didn't back up off, showed them the ADA bylaw, and asked if I could get this decision in writing so I can take a few decades off of work. Never got pushback again. Also, being active duty while ducked up isn't great either. More or less treated like a traitor for being in too much pain for Pete. Turned into an outcast. Senior leadership treats you 1000x more strictly. Story 35. I am a wheelchair user. At Hire, I was vocal about this because unless the position was 100% remote and remained that way, I wouldn't take it. I'm a relatively new wheelchair user and am definitely not ready to be in office anywhere, mentally or physically. I worked for a VR game developer, and we were doing the last big playtests of the software before a major public event. We had people in the playtest that were not normally there, a lot of executives. This footage was going to be used for investors. We load into the VR venue, and the event in headset begins. I suddenly hear my username called out by one of the execs, along with another coworker I knew who was also disabled. "Hey, survey, coworker, stand up." In the VR venue, I see this man's avatar writing "stand up" at me with tools in the program. I was so flustered and frustrated, I said in our voice chat, "I can't stand. I'm in a wheelchair." Cue a ton of conversations, none acceptable or good, that left me and my coworker literally removed from playtests because two disabled folks sitting in VR was bad for optics. Story 36, let's see, diagnosed with PTSD, amongst other things. Ended up having to take a year off work to deal with my mental health. Before I came back, my psychiatrist, psychologist, therapist, and doctor submitted mountains of paperwork and medical records to back up an accommodation request to work from home 2 times a week for a couple months, to ease me back into full-time work. It was denied immediately, appealed, then denied immediately again. I have a valid disability and an entire team of medical professionals saying I needed this. When I escalated this, I finally spoke with the senior HR specialist in charge of accommodation requests to find out why it was being denied. Despite everything, she literally laughed at me. "What, you really think you can just come and go as you please? No one gets to do that." Many employees did this. Besides, we aren't even set up to let workers do this. All of us had a login for a virtual desktop. "No, you'll just have to suck it up with the rest of us." A month and a half after this call was March 2020 and everyone was sent home. Story 37. I was trying to get a job at Hibachi, just prepping the line and cleaning. I have a bunch of experience with prep. The interview went well. Manager even offered to carpool because I didn't have a ride. I thought it was for sure. Then he asked me, how many hours can I work? And to keep my medical insurance on disability, I can't make over a certain amount, which usually translates to 25. As soon as I said disability, he was out. Ended the interview, no follow-up. And at every job I've had since I became disabled, I would iterate that I need schedule accommodations because if I don't tell them, then I get harassed about why I won't work more. And every job I've had has scheduled me over those hours and I ended up quitting. The only experience I have is customer service and kitchen skills, and those positions get crap on all the time. Unreasonable for anyone, let alone someone with a disadvantage. Being on disability really can put you in the poverty trap. They don't pay enough as is, and they penalize you if you try to be productive. It's either all or nothing. Story 38. In an old, pre-pandemic job, I was granted WFH capacity due to having ulcerative colitis, a bowel disorder, which meant there were days I'd be almost chained to the toilet in absolute misery. The WFH capacity was granted, so if I had days like this, I could be close to a toilet and be able to work rather than use sickness. After a few instances of needing to stay home, my manager asked if I could better plan my WFH days, as if I had any control over my situation. Once my contract ended, I left for a new job and ended up having my entire bowel removed as it was so diseased. My new job told me to take as much time as I needed to recover, which ended up being 3 months. They implemented staggered working for my return and gave me an office next to the toilet for convenience. Not all jobs are the same. Story 39, ADHD. HR made an accommodation that I wasn't supposed to do shifts longer than 12 features due to medication. Boss said we really needed me to do 10 a.m., 2 a.m. twice a week, then 10-12 the day before. This happened multiple times and refusal was ignored. They tried again when I had a new job lined up and I walked out a week early. Got my holiday pay and some extra after they got a call from Adult Protective Services. I had got a different job on Indeed and on the way out, showed the ADHD clinic handling my titration the lack of accommodation that they were ordered to provide and was required by law. The manager was it, turns out, in training to be the GM. He didn't finish it and was let go. So sometimes HR will help, just when not doing so is illegal. Story 40. My current job, the first interview went so well and I clicked so much with the hiring manager that I was hired on the spot. I had just come out of a job that I accepted too hastily, to my detriment. So I asked if I could have a second interview with the department head just to be diligent. This woman proceeds to straight up ask me what my disability is, illegal in the UK, and then said that she was concerned about hiring me because I might take too much sick time. Discriminatory. Despite my misgivings, I told the hiring manager I would take the job and also informed her what the department head had said to me. Department head was sacked a week after I joined. I'm still there 2 years later and have never been happier. Story 41. I had to have a very painful and embarrassing surgery back there. I was supposed to take 3 baths per day, 20 min each, for 8 weeks after surgery. I was having to change butt gauze multiple times a day, couldn't sit in a chair at all, and had to use peri bottles, and ended up getting a bidet. I was already a hybrid worker, so I submitted a request for temporary reasonable accommodation to work from home until I was recovered. My thinking was that I could work an extra hour per day to make up for the baths and could deal with all the other unpleasantness from home. My boss said no and suggested as an alternative that they could just sit me next to the restroom. When I quit, they didn't pay me for the days I was off for surgery, so I filed an ethics complaint and won. Funny thing is, it is a health insurance company and their motto is, "We stand with our members in sickness and in health." But clearly that must only be for members, not employees. Story 42. A friend's situation. I got a call from a friend who was a sales manager. He hired a mutual friend of ours, who it turned out wasn't doing well from a sales standpoint. The sales manager friend called me one day and said, I think something's wrong with Mike." Not his real name. "He's a nervous wreck. Every time I sit him down to talk, he literally shakes. It's pretty effed up." I suggested he speak Mike and see if everything is okay. I knew what was wrong with Mike, but it wasn't my place to say anything. This went on for 3 months. He called me again to tell me how nervous Mike was, and I asked if he spoke to Mike yet. Still no. Hoping he would speak to the guy, I didn't say a thing. A few weeks later, another call from the sales manager. I said, "I'll assume you still haven't spoken to Mike." He said he hadn't because he was uncomfortable with the situation. I said, "You should be uncomfortable, BC, you're a git." The guy has MS and Parkinson's. His response, "Oh, story 43. With spinal stenosis, osteoarthritis, arthritis, and migraine cluster headaches brought on by pain, which is pretty severe in the evenings, I have an accommodation to not work past 6 p.m. I'm a manager for a Fortune 50 company, FH, and we may be required to be mod 1 night per month. My accommodation is approved because I am disabled through the state of Colorado and company approved." My senior manager told me, "I don't care about your disability. Do not use it as an excuse. You must work the evening shift if I tell you to, and your accommodation means nothing to me." He then threatened me with a job search if I refused to work the evening shift, which essentially means termination after 30 days. 15 years at this company. I'm currently on LOA as I also have cancer. I would sue if any attorney was not afraid to take on this company. I need my medical benefits or I would just quit. How do you ignore Americans with Disabilities Act? HR did nothing about it, so went out on a very long leave of absence. Stress, cancer pain related. Story 44. Not me, but I was a manager at a restaurant when we had a recently returned soldier with major PTSD working the front register for a while. I liked the guy, but he caught a lot of crap from others. I will admit he wasn't super hardworking, but he did okay, kind of an average employee. He would occasionally have episodes where he would need to go somewhere quiet to collect himself before returning to work. I never felt they were that bad, and he wasn't bad about taking extra breaks anyways, so I just rolled with it. Over and over, other employees and some of my fellow managers would give me grief about him saying that he was faking it all. I once saw him get scared by a falling cardboard box, and he started punching the box and then the wall until his hands were bleeding, then went fetal on the floor and rocked back and forth crying. Nobody else was around, and I don't think he saw me. I can't imagine doing this in an attempt to fake something. Story 45. I worked in an Sen school for children. I had been having a rough time with mental health and was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. I was also diagnosed with autism. While signed off sick by my doctor, the headmaster would contact me repeatedly saying she's read my sick note and doesn't think I should be off. She even planned a meeting for me and tried to scrutinize me for not attending, even after I explained I wasn't going to go because my doctor had signed me off sick. Well, anyway, fast forward to when I came back, I was having a meeting with the headmaster. I was explaining my autism diagnosis and how certain situations really stress me out, like sudden unknown changes to a routine. She told me my autism doesn't affect my job, and if I couldn't handle things in the workplace, I should just leave. I was so shocked as most of the children at the school were somewhere on the spectrum. I left later that week. I guess she was right about just leaving story 46. A temporary disability, but a disability nonetheless. After I broke my leg, my doctor encouraged me to walk on it as much as possible during the late stages of healing, though wrote my workplace a return-to-work procedure, which limited my hours, along with some of the duties I would have been tasked to perform, lifting, climbing, pulling, etc. This was a large workplace, with several other employees capable of doing these things, and there was enough for me to do within my limitations that made it worth my time there. Anyway, I didn't live far from work and started to walk to and from in order to help my bones heal. I was called into a meeting with my director, HR, and an occupational health nurse. The HR person asked me if I was in such pain that I couldn't do all of my duties. Why did she see me walking to and from work each day? I looked at the other two for some sign of sanity, but they both sat and stared at me, expecting an answer. Story 47. I'm partially blind, and during my college years, I somehow found a job within walking distance of the train line. I was doing just fine at the job, and the manager said she wanted me to work at the main office in some faraway town that had no public transportation at all. She had imagined that someone might not be able to drive an automobile and wondered aloud why a healthy young man would have such problems. Well, healthy in everything but eyesight. Perhaps she thought that driver's license tests didn't have eyesight requirement. Can't you just get a cab? she would say, exasperatedly, not seeming to know or care that cab fare every day would consume well over half my $6 an hour wage. This was around the turn of the millennium, in the days of 98-cent per gallon gasoline, and drivers took cheap car travel for granted. Actually, drivers tend to take their privilege for granted more than any other demographic majority I can think of. Story 48. I have major hearing loss from childhood illness, and I got put on drive-through as a teen and told to work harder to hear the orders. Then, I got in trouble for either not hearing most of the orders or messing up the ones I did hear. Yes, they were aware of my hearing loss, had all the paperwork from my doctors to have a grasp of the severity of the loss, when that manager decided to do that. Loudly and on camera in front of customers, small town, and many people knew me, I told her that she wasn't going to use my disability to abuse me, and that I wasn't working drive-through when I was hired for front counter only. I quit on the spot, only for both the store manager and district manager to call me later. I told them I wasn't going to be abused and shared some of the names she used to refer to me as, on top of her always placing me on drive-through. Story 49. 20 years ago when I was a teenager, I worked at an Arby's for a time. I had a series of minor injuries over 2 months that either had me call off or need to be accommodated during the shift. I came in with my arm in a brace with a doctor's note to not work for a couple days and was fired on the spot because they couldn't keep dealing with it. I was still technically a minor and didn't care about the job, so it was fine, but absolutely ridiculous and illegal. Story 50. After I finished my 1 week of cancer treatment at my most recent gym. Mind you, I still had to work while taking all this radiation, albeit at home. My boss started to hover over me because I caught a UTI after, and my boss thought this was related to my cancer. He asked if I should be on PTO, and I felt that was a little extreme for the situation as I was still able to work. He then all of a sudden told me I was supposedly underperforming 1 week after and placed me on the PIP. I kept improving, but when I did, I would encounter various and new complaints. Because as it turns out, a PIP is just a kiss of death, a cover-up for the real reason you're getting fired. Anyways, nobody has really said anything awful about my disabilities because they know they're opening themselves up to liability and a lawsuit, which they have always successfully evaded in the past. Story 51. I used to work with a girl that was a step higher than me. She would make fun and pick on me for my depression. PTSD never listening to anything I had to say about it. And she couldn't understand why I would call in because it's not like it's a big deal. We would get pulled into the office for arguing. I'd apologize. She never would. After a few years working together, she got one of those genetic tests that tells you what medications would work best for you. She swaps meds, and a few weeks later, she looks at me and says, "You know, I've never wanted to hurt myself before, but this medicine really messed me up." I told her, "Welcome to my normal daily life where I fight my brain constantly." She quit shortly after. I never got an apology for all her hatefulness, but she stopped harassing and bullying me after that. Story 52. Had a boss who referred to a fellow employee's diverticulitis as a tummy ache. He ordered the poor sob into work when the guy was in enough pain to light up several major cities. The guy's bowel became necrotic and had to be removed. We made the partner aware and he was totally unapologetic. There were 5 staff and we systematically walked into the managing partner's office and there enumerated the story over and over. Our threats to quit were unnecessary. Turned out that if the guy would have stayed in bed, his bowel likely would have healed. He sued the partner individually and the partnership collectively. The firm was forced to kick out the partner. My former colleague no longer works in the field. He lives off the monies that he won from the former partner in the firm. Former partner was kicked to the curb and works for himself now. Story 53. I work with adults who have developmental and physical disabilities. One of the people that I work with has a job at McDonald's sweeping floors, taking trash out, breaking down boxes, etc. For some reason, this McDonald's posts a physical schedule on. Now, this individual has no transport of their own because they are unable to drive and must have someone else drive them. It is also a 3-mile trip to the location. About 20% of that route has sidewalks. The rest is walking in the street. So, despite my agency trying to convince the owners to use the scheduling app that they have, they resist. When we tried to get accommodations so the individual could call in and have a schedule given to him over the phone, it was refused. We were told that if they did it for one person, they would have to do it for all. Story 54. Not an employer, but a judge and a clerk at Social Security Administration. I was denied disability because even though I was disabled, I had worked extremely hard all my life. At the age of 35, I had the number of credits that an average 55-year-old would have working full-time. So I could get a minimum wage job and just demand $25, $30 an hour, according to the judge. After, I asked the clerk what I should do. Because part of my disability is that I'm unable to stand on my feet for more than a half hour at a time. And she said I should lie on the application, say I could stand for 8 hours, and once I got hired, tell them the truth. She said once they hire me, they have to accommodate me. I'm like, even if I lied? Story 55. You're too young to be sick. Said to both me and my significant other about injuries, autoimmune diseases, and so on. Ridiculous society with no comprehension of reality beyond their own noses. Story 56. I have bipolar disorder and occasionally experience brain fog and memory lapses when I'm in a depressive or mixed episode. I asked one employer to send me a written checklist with the top priority things she wanted me to get done that day, and she told me, I don't have time to babysit employees. What the heck? I wasn't asking to be babysat. I was asking for support. Story 57. I was 6 months out of major heart surgery. The job I had taken and just got hired at was a 1-hour train ride and 1-hour walk after getting off the train. This was a good thing as you need cardio after heart surgery. The job knew this and hired me on with the set expectation that it's just going to be a bit tough for me early on. 3 months into the job, our team gets a new manager hired externally. I got into work one day and was just exhausted from all the travel. Didn't really get much done till lunch. Manager looks at me and says, you know, some of us like to come to work prepared and energetic no matter what's going on. I started looking for jobs right then and there. Story 58. I was literally fired within 3 years of my diagnosis and within 3 months of receiving a handicap license plate after devoting 15 years to this company. It didn't become an issue until COVID because the physical demands and loss of support staff was very hard on my body. I asked for meetings to discuss and I was ignored. I was then told they would have to terminate me because I wasn't meeting job expectations, even though there was not one write-up or negative evaluation in my entire career with them, much less a specific instance where I couldn't perform. I practically killed myself for this job. After I was terminated, they ended up hiring several support staff members and relaxed COVID protocols. It was such a slap in the face. I easily won unemployment, but I definitely could have sued. Story 59. I have a stomach condition and I have medical documentation on file with HR stating that I need extra bathroom time. Their way of dealing with people they feel have been in the bathroom too long. This varies from supervisor to supervisor, and for some it's anything more than a couple of minutes, is to remotely log you out of the system. So you have to log back in when you get back to your station. This doesn't dock your pay or anything, which I think might be illegal. So all it does is send a message of, we're watching you. Well, that and sometimes cause issues when you log back in. They know I have a medical issue I can't control, but I still come back to find myself logged out half of the times I go. Story 60. I got fired from my last job as a third-party vendor inside a certain blue and yellow electronics store because I was sitting down on a floor-level shelf when no one was around, because I was stretching my back, and because I was off the sales floor in the bathroom too many times. Said nothing to me, my boss, or my boss's boss. My boss might have heard something but sent a message in the region group text that I've been getting reports that some of you aren't staying on the floor enough. Instead, just went straight to HR, a terminable offense. And I'm like, well, I have chronic pain and colitis. What do you want me to do here? Story 61. I have chronic migraine disorder which manifests itself as headaches, then seizure-like events where I black out and my body spasms uncontrollably. It's super fun and I've dealt with it since I was a kid. I used to work in a call center and I had my stuff all sorted with HR, so if I had a migraine coming on, I could go home before the blackout happens. Had a supervisor say, have you tried taking some Tylenol for your, finger quotes, headaches? Yes, I've tried every over-the-counter medicine and several prescriptions. Oh, maybe you have a Medic's problem. Maybe if you stop taking so many pills, you will get better. Thanks. Story 62. I can't even go down the list of crap former employers have said or done when I have disclosed my disabilities for reasonable accommodation. It's too dumb and traumatic enough to re-traumatize me and make me angry. We live in an ableist society. People should imagine what it would feel like if they live in a world of giants and how everything is created, maintained, and even societal acceptance for giants and not regular-sized people. How would one get through life like that? It's a great starting place to know how people with disabilities feel. Story 63 said they never heard of it, so I must be making it up. Started an investigation on his own that he then took to HR. Said my doctor didn't exist, my office didn't exist, my condition was made up, and my medication didn't exist. Took it all the way to our corporate medical board, whatever it's called. It was 6 months of an investigation. Turns out some random corporate talking head higher in the corporate chain than me is still a ducking git when it comes to medical conditions, almost like you need some sort of certificate or degree to be knowledgeable in the field of disabilities. Got it all thrown out, got top tier bonus. Get to talk about it to his face on the daily. Story 64. I was called into a security meeting for a legit duck-up. Sent email to my personal instead of work. But after that, I was getting ready to leave when the security officer says, I've got one last question to ask. Do you know how I knew to find you in the bathroom? No, you go there a lot. I've been getting lots of reports and that you hang out there for 10 minutes at a time. Oh? I find people reporting on one another's bathroom usage to be extremely weird. Well, we think you're stealing time. I don't want to tell your contracting company. Why so much bathroom time? Crohn's disease. Sorry, I won't bother you again. Story 65. Chef here. Currently on burnout, leave my head chef, my manager, and the company doctor. When are you coming back to work? Pretty much on a daily basis. I'm not a psychologist. I'll be back when they think I'm fit to return. So when will that be over and over again? Just because I don't have a plaster cast around my brain doesn't mean I'm not unfit to be at work. Story 66. I don't say crap about my disabilities and don't apply places where they're likely to come up. What's the crap employers say about it? They ask you in writing if you have anything that needs accommodating so they can throw your application straight in the trash. And then throw your written answer in your face if you reverse what you told them to get an interview. This country has a lot of awfully good laws that it doesn't enforce. Story 67. I got chewed out about the ugly appearance of my leg brace by the exact same people responsible for the slip and fall that put me in that brace. I should have been home, not working, but I was pressured to show up. And when I did, with a cane and 3 braces on my legs, I was asked why I couldn't hide the brace under my pants. The brace was so abrasive and rough, it tore the pants to shreds. Story 68. You have to be able to do this job with or without accommodations. Okay, then why bother asking for them? Why bother having laws requiring accommodations? They just don't want to deal with disabilities in any shape or form. It's inconvenient and costs money. Story 69. If you're in so much pain, you need painkillers, quit right now. A different well-meaning manager. Will you be okay after dialysis? One treatment and you're good? She genuinely didn't understand how it worked. I don't want to deal with a disabled worker on my team. I'm going to get you transferred out of my department. Ops director and shift manager told her to stop being dumb. Legally, she can't do that. And to stop making issues are of my disability. Story 70. My 2 worst with same company and manager. I am a T2D and was told that I was only allowed to test my blood sugar or injected my insulin in the restrooms because the team bully had complained I tested at my desk and injected in the break room. I asked if they wanted to eat lunch in the restroom. She said no, obviously, and I told her that I was not going to expose myself to the germs in the restroom. Thank goodness I work from home now. Story 71. In email. We are not offering you the contract as your Crohn's is unpredictable and you might end up in the hospital. Yes, I went to HR. Yes, I did end up with the contract. Story 72. This one absolute crow at work keeps saying crap like, oh, I don't know how your brain works, tee-hee. It's only humorous because she reads and writes on like a 7th grade level. I have no idea how she's managed to fail upwards for 30 years now. Major B word. Would not recommend. She's referencing autism when she says that. She's discriminatory AF, but I run circles around this dip crap in every email. So it's really more of an annoyance. Story 73. ADHD isn't a real excuse as to why you can't focus. Okay, I have had scoliosis all my life. I have had several people tell me I'm too young to have back pain. I'm 29, but even at 18, and should get over it, like it's some kind of damn switch. Also had a job call me a liar because I kept getting randomly sick for no reason. It wasn't drink, food, stress, or anything induced. Turned out I had an infection in my lymph nodes in my mesenteric. It's called mesenteric adenitis. They still called me a faker, with an ER note. Story 74. Where do I need to start? Oh boy, ASD, ADHD. I received a meltdown from a field manager once who couldn't take it that I regularly asked stuff that was part of the job that the person had. Another employer was forcing me during a interview training to be something I was not, and I got overstimulated. Colleagues saying that autism is just one of the many labels, or everyone is a little bit autistic. Story 75. I had a manager tell me I really needed to be scheduling my doctor's appointments outside of work hours, and that the only reason I wasn't doing so was to get out of work. She didn't have a response when I asked her which doctor she sees who is open outside of normal business hours. Story 76. Had a manager who would send her assistant to follow me into the bathroom to listen to me crap when I was in a Crohn's flare-up. When questioned about this, they said it was just a coincidence that she would get up and follow me every time, then stand outside my stall at the sink washing her hands. I resigned after this happened 4 or 5 times a day for the entire first week of my flare-up. Did not give notice. I told my GI doctor about this treatment, and she was appalled, but said it wasn't the first time she heard of employers harassing her IBD patients in the bathroom. Story 77. The most understanding job was actually a minimum wage one at a movie theater. Ironically, it's the more professional jobs that made inappropriate comments. I have lupus in RA and would get infusions to suppress my immune system. My boss would try to tell me all the time it wasn't a big deal if I missed it and was constantly trying to pressure me into not going, even though I made up my hours by staying late the rest of the week. He was just constantly trying to give me medical advice, despite the fact that he knew absolutely nothing about medicine and science, religious organization where science isn't really taught. Story 78. You didn't submit documentation, so you don't have ADHD. Documentation isn't required or necessary. Plus, I also disclosed my condition to HR with a confirmation call to my primary GP that is currently helping me get an adult diagnosis, so I can get medication to help manage my worst symptoms as I age. I also showed management my antidepressants that I was taking to manage depression symptoms of ADHD in the meantime. It was also funny because that manager used to be a family friend and knew me growing up, that I might have mental problems such as bipolar and PTSD. I remember vividly my mother telling everyone that I was crazy. Story 79. I had an invisible disability and argued with a guy about whether I really could do something. Manager ended up accusing me. I don't know what in that argument had that undertone. Didn't actually find out until like 3 years later. But man, sure had a field day with that one. Story 80. I worked at a bar and was told that I needed to stop wearing my glasses because I wasn't hot enough for the patrons with them on. I can't see well enough to function without wearing my glasses, unless I'm at home because I know where everything is. But if we redecorate or something is out of place and I'm not wearing my glasses, well, guess who's most likely going to get injured? But yeah, she tried to force me to get contacts by saying, well, if you want to keep this job, you'll stop wearing those ugly things. Just get contacts if you want to pretend you can't see. Story 81. I have a vocal tic disorder, and one of my coworkers got concerned. Like, he started saying things about me, hit everyone in the office. When I'm unplugged from my surroundings, too focused on something, or say, listening to earbuds, I have vocal tics. It might seem like I'm muttering to myself or having odd outbursts. Sometimes there is profanity. Since the experience with Jay, I make sure to disclose my disability, because people could get the wrong idea, and I need it to be discoverable. Story 82. When I worked at a certain place with the golden arches, I started to have an asthma attack during the dinner rush. We weren't allowed pockets, so my inhaler wasn't on me and it wasn't allowed nearby since I use it orally. I asked my manager if I could go to the back and take my inhaler so I could, breathe, and she said, sorry, can you wait 10 minutes? I was an idiot and said yes. And eventually, after 15 minutes, just abandoned her and took it myself. Never asked for permission again. A lesson learned. Story 83. I have autism, and I work with children who have mild autism. Think Asperger's, and learning disabilities. One of the children I worked with became extremely abusive towards me. Very high-functioning teenager, he was aware of what he was doing and told me he enjoyed torturing me. I wasn't out as autistic at my workplace, due to trauma from previous employers firing me when I disclosed it. One day when I was discussing my student's behavior and advocated to get some help for him, the team told me, it sounds like you don't understand autism. Story 84. I had a supervisor and 2 coworkers explain that chronic illness doesn't exist unless you're old. Also, you can't have a chronic illness unless you do nothing but sit on the couch, eat cheese doodles, and get fat because sick people aren't allowed to do anything. They also argued that anyone with chronic illness or disability should stay at home anyway to keep the community from being forced to put up with you. Same supervisor also argued that anyone with a fever of 105, 106 Fahrenheit would clearly pass. Yeah, I work in veterinary medicine, where we deal with high fevers and chronically sick patients. Story 85. I have PTSD and was having a panic attack one morning. My manager had a nasty look on his face and said, I need to get my crap together. Mind you, I'm at the register having to deal with customers during a panic attack. I opened up to him about my PTSD and trusted him, told him not to talk to anyone else about it. Then he told our district manager and used that against me when I was looking for a promotion. The man said and did all sorts of nasty crap to me. I have physical disabilities as well. People suck. Story 86. As a type 1 diabetic who worked entry control in an already dirty guard shack, my coworker told me it was inappropriate to take my blood sugars or insulin inside, and I should go out to the public porta potty to do it. No, it wasn't because she was afraid of needles, and I could do it in a private manner to where she couldn't see it inside the building. She was just a horrible, hateful woman who, for example, would take donations such as canned food, hygiene supplies, bedrolls, and tents for the homeless, and give them out to friends instead. Story 87. I'm autistic. I was told I had to keep my webcam on during Zoom meetings to show leadership. I didn't realize that being able to see my face was indicative of nascent managerial skills. Jokes on them. I just minimize the whole damn thing and scroll on Reddit. I've been complimented for being extra engaged. Story 88. Chronic major depression and ADHD. Coworkers, you need to quit being lazy and just focus on what you're ducking told. Whoops, my bad, for having the big sad and not being medicated due to the VA doing VA thing. Story 89. I don't have a disability, but many years ago, I was hit by a car while walking to work. Rolled across the hood, got knocked down and out on the road, and the driver drove away. I couldn't do stairs for a long time after that. I had one job during closing shifts that required me to go upstairs that I could easily trade with a coworker for something else. A whole boss cut my hours while I was trying to pay medical bills because, quote, you're not being a team player. Story 90. One of the lesser problems I have at work due to my disability, I was told to write my absence, and medical appointments in the company calendar. So far, so good, and reasonable in my opinion, as everyone knew when I was not as available. Some months later, I was told off why I would do such a thing, as coworkers were jealous, etc. of my privileges. I suspect it was just my supervisor's opinion, as I never heard something from my colleagues other that they appreciated when I was out of office. Story 91. Fibromyalgia is fake. Literally was in all the braces, with my doctor's note and diagnosis. Looked like I had been hit by a truck, limping and everything. I looked this person dead in the eyes and said, I quit, and I'm going to HR. Duh, fuck you, because this is very much real. Do you think I'm faking this? I got them fired. I'd like to add that this was a part-time job. They were already pissed off my schedule, which changed weekly in my dispatch job, which is obviously going to come first. Story 92. I have a dissociation disorder. During one of my mental breaks, my floor manager grabbed me, shook me hard, and told me to snap out of it. Everything was on file. I told them the symptoms during my interview and what not to do. Guess what not to do during an episode? Story 93. I went on leave for 2 months for depression and anxiety, and when talking to my boss about coming back to work, I said I wasn't sure if I was ready. And she said, "What have you even been doing? You must just be having a vacation." I explained how long it took me to find meds that worked and how terrible my side effects were. She blew that off. So then I explained how I spent a long time planning my diet. That shut her up. Story 94. Former chef here. I've walked off cook lines because of low blood sugar before when people have refused to help me. And I hate the way everyone always assumes alcohol is involved when I say I'm not feeling great or didn't sleep too well. Regularly get the shame you can't eat any of these cakes that were brought it. I tell them to watch me. The best one was I got pulled into a disciplinary meeting when I clearly said I was recovering from a hypo. People lost their jobs over that. Story 95. My old boss hates WFH and always said maybe it was petty, but he was salty that a bunch of people didn't come back to office after COVID and gave up their offices to WFH permanently. We also worked in the disability sector. I don't know what he didn't understand. I'm also physically disabled, and he asked me to go on walks all the time, and I had to decline. Like, I'm already exhausted from having to get up and get ready and navigate a campus before I even get to my office. Story 96. I had an employer tell me that I needed to get over my problems and leave them at the door. I have PTSD and sometimes have flashbacks or need to take a mental health day due to it. They also wouldn't give me any promotions or full-time because I was disabled, despite the fact that I reached higher achievements than the majority of my department team on a regular basis. Mind you, this was a large nonprofit company that prided themselves on helping disabled people get meaningful employment. Story 97. I'm T1 as well. I had a boss tell me it was gross and make sure to hide my pump in front of guests. Recently, I had a boss who was the living embodiment of an unzippable cutscene. She told the same story over and over. I have ADHD and my eyes would wander while I was struggling to appear enthralled during her monologues. She told me I'm like a little kid who sees a balloon. For weeks after, she would snap in my face and yell, "Balloon." Story 98. Me, paraphrased for context. I can't participate in the unnecessary walkathon that raises no money for charity and only lets the CEO see who's athletic. I get that it's supposed to be a bonding experience for coworkers, but I don't want to bond in a medical emergency way, or in this bizarre way at all. My back spasms, and I get paralyzed from the waist down. Can I participate in an alternative, say? Management. No, you have to do it. Just figure it out. Story 99. Wasn't said about me, but I used to work at a place that rhymes with brick dille, and a long time ago, one of my supervisors said to a coworker that has type 1 diabetes that she can't be wearing her MP3 player on her belt while in the kitchen. It was a blood sugar monitor. The same individual tried telling our Hispanic team members that they are no longer allowed to speak Spanish in the restaurant since the aforementioned supervisor didn't understand anything past "Hola." Story 100. I have Ehlers-Danlos and currently use a cane and braces when I need to. My manager said, "When are you getting a wheelchair?" In our 1-1, right after I had mentioned that needing mobility aids frustrates me at times. Story 101. My 2-year-old was in the hospital for 2 weeks with suspected leukemia. It was not leukemia, but we didn't know at the time. I got messages from work saying that I had to work and that the father of one of my coworkers had cancer, and she still came to work. My 2-year-old was attached to a drip in the hospital. My colleagues were banana heads, and I am glad to be rid of them. Story 102. My manager at my last place would go on rants and how she hated people who were partially deaf or hard of hearing. She went on about a former employee who had a hearing aid, even dumping a guy after finding out he was deaf in one ear. I have ADHD and auditory processing delays, so always needed her to repeat instructions or write them down. She would get so frustrated with me. So glad I'm out of that place. Story 103. You're not a team player. My former boss told me when I couldn't stay back late, I have bursitis in my right hip and I could barely manage to finish my own shifts, let alone take on extra. I explained that to him many times, yet one day, he hit me with the "not a team player" comment, which left me feeling gutted. Due to this disability, I had to leave that job and haven't worked in a couple of years. Bursitis sucks. People with disabilities. What is something that non-disabled people don't understand? I worked with someone who had a muscular dystrophy disease. She was in the early stages but progressing. All muscular dystrophy diseases are fatal. There are treatments to slow the progression but not to cure them. She looked young and healthy, so it never failed that someone would say something to her if she rode the elevator at work from the second floor to the first floor. She wouldn't even use her handicap parking tag because she didn't want to have to deal with comments or people thinking she's using it just to park closer because she's lazy. Even though she still looked healthy, she would get out of breath faster than others because her diaphragm was weakening. If she talked too much in one day, she would start slurring her words because her tongue would be tired. People forget that's a muscle too. I hate how quick non-disabled people, even some disabled people, are to judge just because someone looks healthy. All MD is fatal. My mistake. The majority I am familiar with are, and I was misinformed about all MD. Story 2. You can't turn it off. If you can navigate life while hiding it, that consumes more energy than you can imagine. And even then, there is a chance that you might encounter something you can't overcome. It's not selective. Some days you win and some days you lose. Story 3. For some of us, there are no pain days, just less pain. Also, you can't just squeeze errands into your schedule. You need to plan for the energy they require and prepare for if they knock you out afterwards. Story 4. That sometimes when we say we can't do something, we mean we can't do it. When I say I can't walk up a long flight of stairs because of a back and knee injury, I don't mean I could do it if I really wanted to, but I just don't feel like it. I mean I physically will not make it up that staircase even if I really give it my all, because my legs will simply give out. We know our own limits. You wouldn't expect somebody to be able to levitate simply by having the right attitude. Story 5. That the world is just not set up for us. There are better cities than others, and plenty of progress has been made, but all major cities are just full of places that just aren't accessible. Story 6. I'm blind, I'm not in pain. I don't feel sad about my situation even though it's only been 10 years. I work full-time. I have friends and interests beyond blindness and disability-related stuff. I play music, read books, although I guess it would be listening to books, travel all around the country by myself, beat everyone at trivia, work in the yard, can identify about 80 species of birds by their sounds, be the father of a child on the spectrum, and an independent parent at that, on a dumb non-service dog who is hopelessly helpless without me. Funny, well-informed, and vote by myself in every election. But people will still stop their car, jump out, and try to drag me across the street when I'm standing at a corner waiting for the light to change people. People will tell me they're so sorry about my condition and will pray for me. I have people who tell me they have a masseuse who can massage my blindness away. And just about everybody else wants to ask me all about being blind, and sometimes I wish I could forget I was blind because the wings of the world are so interested. Once in a while, some kids will suggest that I'm faking it because I'm riding on the bus by myself and can reach up and pull the cord without looking. I guess my complaint is, I think I'm pretty cool, but in the general public eyes, I often get defined by my blindness and not every other damn thing in my life, and that sucks. Story 7. Just because you know a person with a disability who is able to work a job doesn't mean everyone with a disability can work. Not all disabilities are the same. Story 8. I promise you, I don't want to be in bed all day. This isn't a nice, lazy day. It's my life and it sucks. There's so much I can't do because I would need to sit up for more than an hour. In Story 9. It's one thing to have an illness, disability, and you can live with it. It's another thing entirely, mentally and physically, when doctors start giving you expiration dates. Story 10. I don't care if you call me a disabled woman or a woman with disabilities. I'll know if you're being an a-hole by the words on either side of either phrase and react accordingly. Other folks have stronger feelings on people first language, but I think that's small potatoes compared to the wealth of issues disabled people face. Also, we know our limits better than you could, so please, a little respect as we move through the world in our own way. Story 11. I have an autoimmune disorder. Every joint in my body hurts. I wake up in excruciating pain every day. I strain the tendons in my hand wrist if my ice cream gets too hard. I have chronic fatigue syndrome. I have low-grade fevers. I see stars when I stretch and pass out if I stand up too fast. I have neuropathy in my legs, the inside of my hip bones, and my bladder, down my arms into my hands. It feels like someone is poking me with a skewer. My muscles Charlie horse randomly and viciously. I feel like I'm really sick all the time. Despite all that, I operate a small massage business. I'm in school full-time. I'm in 2 choirs, voice lessons, and I garden. I'm in trauma therapy with 2 different therapists, which means I go twice a week. I have 14 boys in my house. I'm a mom too. I have friends, nieces that depend on me, etc. I'm not a complainer, but when I'm a little late, never more than 10 minutes, or something flares and I have to cancel last minute, calling me weak and a whiner is ducking bullcrap. If you had to spend an hour in my body, you'd be in the ER. If you had to be in my body for 2 days, you'd be cranky and depressed. I am fighting my ass off for a life I enjoy. That makes it worth staying here. I am fighting through internal horrors not many people have the courage to face. Strength isn't adopting this toxic positivity 24/7 and denying your past. I was run through the childhood trauma gamut. It broke my body and my spirit. I've been cast into the margins of my family, friends, and community because they cannot bear to see the generational trauma that radiates out of every inch of me. I live my life, I'm kind, I'm helpful, and have strength. I don't think the people who've shamed me have the capacity to imagine. If I was as judgy, blind, misinformed, and hateful as they are, I'd seek help. Because I conquer my problems and obstacles, I'm not so weak and scared that I pretend they don't exist. Not judging anyone who can't turn and face their repressed crap. This is hard. Absolutely everyone should know their limits and go at their own pace. My comment is pointed toward those who tend to shame and judge disabled people to their goddamn faces. Story 12. Disabilities are not black and white. And just because someone can do something one day, it doesn't mean they can do it on another day. And it's possible that doing things that they can might drain their energy for the rest of the day, or even for a few days after. On top of that, it's not just physical. Executive functioning can be a problem too. Disability is a spectrum, story 13. How much harder it is for us to function even close to normal. I'm fighting so hard every day, and it doesn't look like it because you see me every day, story 14. That the disease kicking the crap out of me does have a young onset, and there is literally no cure. It can be managed, but not fully cured, and my case was detected late compared to most, so most of the early management techniques are too little, too late. I do them anyway because they can't make it any worse. So no, I'm not too young to be disabled. Story 15. Sometimes it feels like people want to see your worst symptoms before they believe you. I try really hard not to burden people with my struggles, so I stay silent. No one knows how to be supportive, so they think giving you space is a good option. But it's so isolating. Story 16. Paraplegic for 20 plus years here. I've got a few to throw in. Don't respond to what I'm saying by talking to whoever I'm with. They're not my handler. They're just probably a friend I'm hanging out with that day. Just talk to me. Similarly, my wife is not my nurse. Someone being in a wheelchair does not also always mean they are mentally deficient. My legs don't work and my back hurts. My mental issues are their own thing. I can't just run to X store really quick. It takes so much energy to get in the car, get my chair in, go there and get my chair out, then get into the chair just to then come back out and get back in the car and get my chair back in, and then come back to get my chair out, and then get back in the chair, that it's really not worth the effort to run into the gas station real quick. Similarly to the rule of thumb, when you hear someone's name, whatever the first joke about it that comes to your head is, ignore it. It will almost 100% of the time be something I've heard monthly for 20 years. I love joking about being in a wheelchair, but it needs to be funnier than it is annoying. Know your audience. Bonus, any sort of online/app dating, the brutally demoralizing inner argument on whether or not to make it clear you're disabled in your profile or let the profile be about who you are as a person and tell them shortly into the conversation. The first way ensures you never get a match. The second ensures that once you do, you'll be ghosted when you mention it 98% of the time. Just gotta hold out for that 2%. Story 17. My wheelchair is equivalent to my legs. If you wouldn't go around groping other people's legs, do not duck with my wheelchair. If you would go around groping people's legs, go to therapy instead. Story 18. Ambulatory wheelchair users exist. I'm learning how to get good at walking again, and I'm not great at it yet. But people get really weird in public. Like a while ago, while at the grocery store, I stood up to grab something off a shelf and the lady said, "Congratulations," to me. Very strange interaction, but I mean, it's better than her being outright mean. Story 19. That I have to plan ahead in order to do anything outside my house, especially if it's a place I haven't been before. Things I have to think about before I go anywhere. Do I have enough medical supplies to take with me? How can I store them? Is there parking that will work for me? How far will I be expected to walk? Will there be respiratory irritants? Do I need to alter my medication schedule to account for extra activity or not being near an accessible restroom? So please don't ask me to do things at the last minute and then be mad that I can't join you. And even worse, don't cancel on me at the last minute. when I've already spent hours preparing so our outing will go smoothly and so my disability won't inconvenience you? Story 20. Glasses don't always fix everything. I'm fully blind in one eye and 400 in the other with a 9 prescription, and I still can't do a lot of basic things that most people can do. Stuff like noticing a friend from like 20 feet away is insanely hard, and people don't realize how much that affects disabled people mentally. Also, the classic, "How many fingers am I holding up?" annoys every legally blind person. Story 21. Living with chronic pain can really quickly diminish your ability to accurately rate your pain and understand what your body is trying to tell you. I've endured pain that was my body trying to tell me to go to the hospital on multiple occasions. I've had injuries made much worse by the voice in my head saying, well, this pain isn't as bad as that pain, so I'm probably okay. If you know someone who is disabled with chronic pain, know they are probably trying to find an appropriate boundary between what they can and cannot do. They are probably struggling with that. Also, the way people talk about work and work ethic is so incredibly tiring. I can't wake up at 4 and go to the gym while reading a book. I can't stand up for 8 hours. I'm not trying to be lazy by asking for a chair or needing to take a seat in the middle of work. I'm not a bad person, nor do I deserve less for any of these things. Finally, it's incredible how incompetent doctors can be. I don't have a lot to add, just that most of them have the human interaction skills of a brick wall, and that fact has definitely killed people. Story 22. Here's a fun one from the great state of Texas. Wearing a mask in public will get you some crap in some areas. Aside from the fact that it's hurting nobody if someone else still masks, some of us have to. I have a recent organ transplant and am on a mind-boggling combo of meds, and it's great to be alive. But a fun side effect of being on heavy-duty immunosuppressant meds means that something like the common cold can kill me. It is not a political statement. It's an attempt to reduce my risk of getting dead. I'll keep my mask, thanks. Not always great, sometimes contains mouth-breathing redneck asshats. Story 23. No, everybody does not have the same 24 hours every day. Many disabilities take so much time to manage. From waiting for the disabled transit service, to getting to doctor's appointments, to just getting ready for and recovering from the workday. What takes a non-disabled person 8 hours can take a disabled person 12. Never mind the additional costs of managing one's disability. From meds to assistive devices to specialty items, being disabled is expensive AF, which leads to financial stress, which leads to chronic stress, which leads to more disability, which leads to more time and money. Story 24. Please stop recommending things that you think will help. Yes, I have tried yoga. Yes, I have tried diets. I do not want medical advice from you. You cannot fix it. I have doctors to help, and to have strangers randomly suggest things is very frustrating. It's like able-bodied people don't understand that we can't fix it that easily. I appreciate that you want to help, but that is not helping. Story 25. Chronic pain is different from acute pain. They are processed differently, and they feel very different. So my chronic pain 6 isn't the same as your 6 when you stubbed your toe. Not only does chronic pain not ever stop, but it feels completely different. Story 26. That wishing us get better soon won't work. The disability we have, be it a minor one or something Ella Stephen Hawking, won't ever get better. Some simply progress over 10, 20, 50 years, and we suffer the entire time, especially when doctors and medical peeps label us as having anxiety, Munchausen, hypochondria, or any other mental illnesses and blaming the mental illness for our sickness and faking it. What people don't understand is that the mental part is part and parcel. Having to deal with being ill for months or years, and the type of illness weighs heavy on the mind and soul, not just the body. And the mental illness is a symptom or a result of the disability, not the cause of it. I told someone once years ago, if you're not mentally ill trying to get on disability, by the time you get it, you will be. It is so true. Story 27. I don't know if anyone can share this experience, but when I got diagnosed with a serious disability, I felt my life was over and thought I'd never live a normal, ordinary life like everyone else. I thought I was a cripple, defective, or less than a person, like I was missing something from everyone else. When you're someone who gets diagnosed with a disability during their life, it can be a very tough period for us to process. Luckily, I had a great network of friends and family who got behind me and reminded me that there are a lot of others just like me who, despite their disability, they can still live a normal, productive, and fulfilling life. So far, things aren't too bad after my diagnosis. I have a job that supports me, new workmates that I consider friends. I'm dating and I'm saving up money for a family trip to Canada for Christmas. Story 28. Hearing aids are not like glasses where your vision is restored completely with use. Please do not talk to me if you're not facing me. I will not hear you. Story 29. I have ADHD. Yes, I have taken my medication today. Please, for the love of everything, stop asking. I have days where I can get through my routine no problem, but I have days where I won't brush my teeth or wash my hair. Why? Because I got distracted and suddenly needed to make my bed or organize my sock drawer. I have good and bad days. Please understand that non-disabled people. Story 30. So many people don't understand the energy cost to do what seem like simple things to them. I make substances butter to help with pain and sleep. And when I told a friend that I just swallow the butter like a pill, she told me to stop being so lazy and just make some muffins or something. Healthy people with almost unlimited energy have no ability to understand that I can either make dinner or sweep the floor or go to the grocery store or wash my hair in a day. I cannot do more than one. It's so frustrating to have friends and family members make snide comments like how messy my countertops are, or why is it so dusty in here? As if I want to be living like this, swallowing butter, having greasy hair, and a filthy apartment. They have no concept of how lucky they are to be able to do their chores and manage their lives and have a minimum level of self-respect. Story 31. I hope that learning difficulties and such are welcome in this discussion. I wish people understood that I'm not using a diagnosis to make excuses, nor am I ever convincing myself that they mean I can't do something. My diagnosis comes from the fact that I struggle to do them, not the other way around. I'm just aware that I have a hard time with certain things and that it's due to certain things I've been diagnosed with. Those struggles are the symptoms. The symptoms aren't something I made up after being diagnosed. I know it might seem simple and obvious to a lot of you, but a lot of people just don't get that and attack me for saying I can't do it right now because in its specific difficulty. It's frustrating. Story 32. Everything I do is 10x more complicated than it should be. I have to go the longest route to avoid crossing roads or risk being hit by a car. I have to use buses and trains. Where cars can get from A to B in 20 minutes, I can get from A to B in 2 hours with 3 bus transfers while standing in the pouring rain and freezing cold. I want to go to Crufts? Can't. Lack of public transport for my area up there and back. I have a carer and support workers which make me feel insanely incompetent. It's not amazing and a weight off my shoulders like non-disabled people think. It's stupidly embarrassing that I can't even boil a kettle on my own. And then there's the severe ostracization because you're different. For me, it's always because they're worried I could drop to the floor and start breakdancing, and they don't want to deal with someone peeing themselves in public. Story 33. If you have an invisible disability illness, people forget after a while. It's like people's minds are only wired for illness that ends with either death or getting better. It's hard to have to constantly remind people that, yep, those difficulties still very much exist. Story 34. This is especially for hard of hearing deaf people, but it's whenever I ask them to repeat themselves, it's not that I'm not listening, I just genuinely couldn't hear you. Story 35. Calling out fakers isn't helping. It's just publicizing and shunting attention to faker influencers and increasing society's distrust and suspicion towards anyone who appears to be getting special treatment because of a disability or so. Seriously, no one made you the disability police. You are not qualified to determine if someone is disabled or if their disorder condition is valid. And assuming that someone is not disabled just feeds the attention-seeking victimhood complex of the tiny minority of actual fakers while making life difficult for people who have disabilities. The consequence of giving the benefit of the doubt and helping a faker is generally that you are mildly inconvenienced by an a-hole. The consequences of being rude, cruel, or careless to someone because they might be a faker is that you are going to be rude, cruel, or careless to a lot of disabled people. Your choice what kind of person you want to be. Story 36. People don't want to believe that you can do everything right and bad things will still happen to you. Yes, I exercise as much as I can, and I eat well. I drink lots of water. I've tried this supplement and that. I've tried every cream and every tincture you can possibly name. Sometimes you can be a good person and live a healthy lifestyle and things still go wrong. It's hard to accept, I suppose, if you've never lived with chronic pain, permanent limitations. Story 37. That a lot of my behaviors have nothing to do with them and aren't born out of malice. They're just coping mechanisms or differences in the way my brain is built. Story 38. That you can be fat and have a disability. Apparently, I'm such an imposition because I have the audacity to be big and disabled. I'm not in a wheelchair because I'm fat. I'm using a wheelchair because my knees are so knocked I can't walk. And that's why I'm fat. I can't exercise enough. And I had severe food insecurity as a child. So hello, eating disorder. It'd just be nice not to be judged. Story 39. It can happen to you. If you become too disabled to live your old life, many of your friends and family will disappear because they don't want a constant reminder that this could happen to them or that you are no longer useful or relevant to them. I was a healthy, active 33-year-old in the prime of my career. Then I got COVID and now I'm too disabled to work, care for myself, or do my old hobbies. I've lost most of my friends and my family hasn't once come to visit me in the 3.5 years of me being sick, even though I'm too disabled to travel myself. Story 40. Basically, every disability is a spectrum and presents differently in different people. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. Blindness can range from legal to eyeless. Paraplegia can be partial and you still retain some motion and feeling, or you could have tetraplegia and have loss of movement of all of your limbs. If you hadn't realized autism spectrum disorder was a spectrum, I am very concerned for you if you are anywhere near the disability sphere. Down syndrome might be one of the most visually consistent disorders, but even then, that doesn't say anything about their abilities. Story 41. I am not brave. People who have disabilities are not brave. Just for having a disability, we are living our lives. I have cerebral palsy that doesn't affect my right side at all, but severely affects my left. Therefore, I'm able to do 95% of things with one hand. I don't know how to do things with two hands. Just because doing something with one hand is hard for you, doesn't mean it is for me, because I don't know any better. Also, honest question, why do some people use two hands to put on socks? I've seen family members do this and it confuses me. Is that a normal thing? Story 42. Depression makes doing the things that help depression quite difficult. A healthy diet and regular exercise helped immensely, but my God, it was an emotional roller coaster from hell, getting to the point where I could stick to a routine. Story 43. Our conditions aren't necessarily static. On any given day, I can walk unaided, walk with my quad cane, use my wheelchair, and/or be completely immobile. Even on a minute-by-minute basis, my mobility needs can change. Also, if you offer help to a disabled person and he declines, accept their response. While I appreciate the offer, I'm stubbornly independent, and I find it annoying when people won't listen to me when I decline help. If I need help, I will ask, but I prefer to at least try to do something on my own first. Story 44. What people in wheelchairs miss out on. Sure, the shopping center has wheelchair parks and ramps, but that store with all the really cool games, figurines, just really cool looking stuff from the outside, it's impossible for a 15-year-old that wants to go in there because they can't move around in their chair. Story 45. I wanted to immediately type rationing energy. The glaring fact that we may not be able to overcome something and that can screw us, so we have to plan ahead, or there never being a day we are free from it. I see that posted over and over again. It's heartbreaking and great to know I'm not alone. One of the biggest things I learned is to never think you know someone until your disability inconveniences them. Then, they show you their true colors. I've got about a less than 15 on finding good people, and that fluctuates. Story 46. I have ulcerative colitis. People don't understand I can't wait in line to go to the toilet because I will literally crap my pants. Also being tired. When having diarrhea 10, 20 times a day, losing lots of blood in your stool, your bowel being constantly inflamed, just makes you so tired. When you tell someone, all you get is, I'm tired too. Also the anxiety. People ask, why don't you just get surgery? Because I don't want to have an ostomy and complications. Of course, I'm talking about a flare. Life is pretty sweet when in remission. But first, you need to get there. Story 47. There may be times when I'm confused about what year it is and where I am. But don't talk to me like I'm stupid. Just give me a little while, and it will pass. I worked hard to get my degree, only to have it all taken away by a brain tumor that keeps coming back. I don't want you to patronize me. I'm an adult, damn it. Story 48. Just because I look fine doesn't mean I am. And sitting at home all day isn't fantastic, it's boring. I would love to go back to work, but no one will hire me. This is boring as all crap. Story 49. There is vastly more to being disabled than being in a wheelchair or drooling from the mouth. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. If you think someone is faking it, then report them to the police or something. Don't be an idiot. Story 50. Being non-disabled is inherently temporary. Even if you can't muster the empathy to make the world accessible for others, try to be selfish enough to make it accessible so that when you need accommodations, they'll already be available. Story 51. People are almost always surprised when I tell them that I'm disabled. My disabilities are autism and epilepsy. Whenever I mention the autism, most people start talking down to me and treating me like I'm a child. Karen, I'm damn near 30, so I typically just tell them that I have a birth defect on an internal organ, because that's also technically true. People don't typically change their behavior when I tell them about the epilepsy, though. Apparently, that's one of the more typically accepted disabilities. Story 52. A lot of us function with more pain than non-disabled people can imagine. I had surgery a little under a year ago. When the anesthesia wore off, read no pain mitigation, I genuinely didn't notice, because my pre-surgery baseline was so high that the pain of having an organ and muscle tissue removed and reconstructive surgery of my literal pussy just didn't register as any worse than normal. Story 53. Type 1 diabetic. I was diagnosed pretty young, and I've always been pretty good with details and routines, so it outwardly seems like I've got a really good handle on it. But it is tiring to maintain constant vigilance on basically every bit of energy that goes in and out of your body. Also, please, for the love of God, people learn what the difference between type 1 and type 2 is. Story 54. That even if I can do something one day, it doesn't mean I can do it on a different day. I have a different level of energy every day. I may need 12 hours of sleep one night and still not be able to function well upon waking. I may be able to walk a mile today, but tomorrow I might struggle getting across the house. Story 55, that it's really ducking hard, more so than they think. Every day is a challenge to be normal. I am autistic. Sometimes people can tell, sometimes they can't. I don't feel safe because of it. I'm scared all the time that I will get overwhelmed and not be able to protect myself.